I'm James and welcome to another review. Today we're going to look at a set of rules. Death in the Dark Continent Lite Edition. Now this is available free with Wargames Illustrated issue 400, published in April 2021. Now it's a cut down version of the full game. The full game adds a few more things in and we'll sort of talk about that in the review. But basically it's wargaming in 19th century Africa. Hey, that's a big area to cover. We're talking there everything from Sharka's conquests through to the Boer War. I mean that's a pretty big range. So what does it actually have with it? Well, altogether it's 32 pages long, including the covers. And we've got a getting started, quick note there, explains that it's a cut down version from North Star Games and what's in the fuller version. So it actually simplifies a lot of things, it says. The cover has been simplified. And actually, I don't mind that. I like simple. It describes that the text is actually quite different and it could be used as a quick reference guide for existing players of the game. Okay, fair enough. Some things it says have been missed out, like pygmies, the stratagems and psychological warfare, and scenarios and deployment have been cut down to just one scenario, and there are only 3 army lists with a further 77 in the main book. We'll look at which ones they are in a minute. So it defines the troop types. All armies are made up of a chief, and it's got 3 command types. You've got tribal, organised and disciplined. Okay. Some commanders-in-chief can also be classed as outstanding. So it's going to reflect fairly well the difference between the more organised Europeans, the more organised African troops. I mean, the Zulus could actually get up to the full disciplined status. The organised is perhaps there's some sort of formal positions of authority for the chief, and then tribal are the it says here, leaders by reason of birth, magical powers or personal qualities, but no formal system of commanding. Fair enough. The troops then are divided into different types. The foot troops, you have skirmishers, soldiers, warriors, which are the more close combat ones, and Mzungu, which is a Swahili word for individuals or small groups of very well armed and very well motivated explorers or big game hunters. It's your Alan Quatermains of the world. Mounted troops, light horse, heavy cavalry, camel riders, there's a few distinct rules, and it notes that cavalry can dismount, and cavalry pretty much will. There's no guarantee, there's no sort of use otherwise. Troops are split by level of training, except for the Mzungu, and these are split into raw, untrained, and elite. Bit of an odd one for that. I thought there was one missing, like a normal one, but okay, it fits in. It basically means that your colonial powers are going to be pretty much elite armies. Divides firearms into different types: breech loading rifles, like the good old Martini Henry, muskets, repeating rifles like the later Lee Metford, elephant guns, yeah, great if you want the Alan Quatermain figures, rockets, field guns and artillery, and they divide into different subtypes, and machine guns, again split into 2 types. Turn sequence on the next page basically goes through 8 parts of a turn. There's quick rules for deployment, but you've got rally, late arrivals, retirement moves, movement, shooting, close combat, morale checks, and established victory conditions. So phase 1 is the rally phase. You try to rally and remove disorder markers. Now disorder markers are very debilitating in this game. Accumulate enough of them and your unit routes. But even at lower levels it has a big impact. They affect you negatively on shooting and close combat, and they also affect your ability to even move into close combat. So there's rules for removing those. Basically a 6-sided dice or multiple 6-sided dice, and for each 6 you remove one of the tokens. And there's some very nice illustrations. These are very well illustrated rules. I'll just hold up so you can see. Most pages look like that with a photo or sometimes 2 on it. And it's a nice illustration there where they've actually used shields to indicate disorder. So the next thing then looks at dicing for later rivals. There's a whole phase to that rather than just a quick little note. Retirement moves where you can flee from close combat. Movement. Now movement in the game is very random. All units have dice to roll and it modifies them. So skirmishers in good going will move 2d6 plus 2 inches. You don't necessarily need a big table for this game. It's a normal table. Although it does note that if it's a very dense terrain, you can actually play it on quite a small table. So your skirmishers moving 2d6 plus 2 inches. Your soldiers, 6-sided dice plus 2. It's worth noting that the colonial powers are going to be slow on the table, which does tie in very nicely. Heavy cavalry, 3 6-sided dice in inches. Now it's not going to appeal to everybody. I like it, not everybody will. They're modified for difficult terrain, so skirmishers in difficult terrain just roll 2 6-sided dice, they lose the plus 2. Soldiers, 6-sided dice, they lose the plus 2 inches. The heavy cavalry go from 3d6 inches to 1d6 minus 1 inches. Ouch. Cavalry in difficult terrain is not good, and some of the artillery can't even move into it. So you have that there. You can have re-rolls from your chiefs. They can do that. It talks about moving through other units. Unit cohesion. All the stands of a unit must stay together. It's based around stands. It does say you can quite happily use individual ones, but obviously that's going to be slower. And it's alternate movement. One moves, the other moves. It just passes back and forth. So it's an I go, you go. Note there for forming square. Now shooting, each base rolls an attack if it's got line of sight. You can't fire through friends, can't fire over them, except for certain units. 45-degree shooting arc to your front, and it's very simple. You roll a 20-sided dice, and there are modifiers. You've got effective and maximum ranges. So things like spears being thrown are 3 inches, elephant guns 4-inch effective, maximum of 8. Rifles, so breech loading rifles, 8-inch effective, 20-inch maximum. And it's very simple. Roll the d20. Some weapons roll more, like machine guns, and you have modifiers, notably including -1 for every disorder marker the shooter has. And if you score a 14 or more, you've got a hit. So 14 to 18, the unit gets a disorder marker. 19 to 20, it takes a hit and a disorder marker, and the hit basically removes one of the stands. 20 is a critical hit, natural 20, which always removes a stand and causes a disorder, and a 1 for early machine guns. The weapon jams and can't fire this turn. And we've got a really nicely worked out example being done stage by stage to show you what happens. It's very quick and easy to learn this. Close combat. Only certain troops can move into close combat. All the predictable ones. Skirmishers can't. Obviously people can move into contact with them. And basically it's very simple. You roll a 6-sided dice for the whole unit. There's various modifiers for disorder, both yours and theirs. What your unit is, where you've attacked from, what the defenders are, various other modifiers. And very simply, there's a quick chart then. 1 or less, defenders stand firm. If armed with missiles, they unleash a devastating volley at the last moment. Otherwise, they present an unwavering line of shields and spear points against which the enemy batters in vain. The attackers lose a base of their player's choice, receive 2 disorder markers, and fall back 2d6 inches, still facing the enemy. That's the worst you can get. The best you can get, 7 or more. Defenders lose their nerve at the last minute and flee, but too late to escape their assailants. The defending unit is massacred, and all bases are removed permanently from the table. straightforward. And they actually carry on the example where the firing unit, the following turn, have now moved into melee combat with them. Defenders don't roll dice, interestingly. It's all built into the table. It's all off that one roll. You then come into 7 morale tests, and certain things will cause you to have to roll morale. 6-sided dice trying to equal, depending on the troops. Raw troops need a 5, elites need a 3, others need a 4. And basically, if you fail it, you're talking getting 2 disorder markers. Now you can have multiple tests in a turn. This is important. So that there's various cases where that occurs. There's a few examples as well where you get exemptions. Troops in square can ignore 1 test each turn. Soldiers in cover get a similar one, and if there's a chief nearby, they can ignore 1 test per turn each. So it's very straightforward. There's a little section on terrain where it talks about, is it difficult terrain or not, what's the effect of line of sight, and what cover is there. Straightforward. I particularly like the river, in brackets, crocodiles, or marsh crocodiles. And basically, if you've got anybody in that position at the end of a turn, you roll a d20, and on a 1 or a 2 you lose that unit, or that stand. It's been eaten by crocodiles, which does cause casualties for morale tests. It's a lovely little note where it talks about this did actually happen quite frequently in African warfare. Some tribes deliberately encouraged the crocodiles as part of the defences of their village. That was a nice little bit of trivia. There's a few more specific rules then. It talks about the chiefs, the baggage train. All units have to have a baggage train, which could be a nice big organised thing, or it could just be a couple of stray cows at the back. Rules for square formation, quick one for mixed armed units, and then you have the army lists. Now it says that units should have 2 to 8 figures. So each army should have 2 to 9 units, including allies. And it gives you the costs for them, any restrictions, their aggression rating for deciding who's the attacker and who's the defender, and so on. Full set of points values, and then you actually have actual lists. You've got one for the Zulu and the Swazi, not the most complex of ones. You have a grand total of 4 unit types, predictably most of them being the Amabuthu or regiments, in other words warriors. You've also got the option for a few skirmishers with either spears or muskets, and possibility of some allies where you can have mounted Zulus or white adventurers. I think somebody for that one has been reading the diaries that led to the old series, for those who remember it, back from the 80s, Shaka Zulu. I quite like that one. It's a nice little ally unit to include, and there's a little part of me thinks, I might just do something with that with some of my Zulus. And there's some notes about what you can use them for and so on. It does talk about having the regimental characteristics in there, so as an optional rule. So you've got that. You've then got the British in South Africa. Now this has been perfect for me, because the 2 forces I've got and I'm building up are Zulus and British for 1879. There's a lot more choices for the British. Predictably, you have to have 1 to 5 units of regular infantry, marines or sailors. Yeah, that's straightforward. It does give you the option to field them as ordinary or elite. You've then got the option for cavalry, mounted infantry, native contingent troops with a couple of variants of that. And there is actually a requirement to have 1 stand of native infantry, or 1 unit of infantry. The option to add field guns, Gatling guns or Maxim guns, and rockets. So it's nice, a couple of notes there. Sort of giving a few suggestions as to what they could be used for. Some oddities in there as well, which I wouldn't have thought of using the list for, like the Jameson raid. But there are some nice ones in there. And just then for something a bit different, you've got the Mahdist forces for 1882 to 1898. Again, not a huge variety of forces, 5 different types. There are some upgrades and things that you can do to them to change them, but nice and straightforward. You've got an index, which to be honest in 32 pages I'm not sure you need, but yeah, it fills a page I suppose. There's a figure index, credits. There's also a note that you can actually go online and download 10 army lists. So yeah, I thought it was quite a nice little thing. You've got a reference guide on the back. I suppose if you're a player of the game, that's quite useful just in itself. I haven't played it through yet. I wanted to get the review up while the magazine is still in the shop, so you get a chance to buy it. You can get the rules online as a PDF, and they were £6, and the magazine's less than that. So I think my preferred option would be to pick up the magazine. It looks simple enough, it looks playable, I like the style. I've had good reports from people I've talked to who played the game. So at the price you're looking at to pick it up, it's probably worth a go, and then that gives you the option, if you do enjoy it, to expand and buy the full book. Hopefully that's been useful. If it has, drop me some comments below. I always like to find out what you think of these, and it gives me the option then to know what to do next. Hopefully, like I said, that'll be useful, and I'll see you soon for another review.